When a janitor at a tech billionaire's estate in Austin hears a child crying from the forbidden top floor, she risks her job to investigate. What she finds isn't just a boy locked in silence. It's the beginning of a bond that will unravel secrets, spark healing, and bring a shattered family back together. The cry wasn't normal. It wasn't the kind of whine a tired child gives when nap time is overdue. It wasn't the whimper of boredom or the squeal of tantrum. This sound, raw and echoing through the still corridors of the Caldwell estate, was soaked in something deeper: grief, fear, and desperate loneliness. It was the kind of sound that vibrated in Maya Walker's bones. She froze mid-swipe of the tall glass window on the east wing. The mop in her hand dripped against the marble floor, forgotten. Her earbuds were in, but she'd pulled one out instinctively when the cry reached her. There it was again. Not quite a scream, but a broken plea wrapped in silence. Her supervisor had warned her on day one. Never go near the 5th floor. It's off limits, no matter what you hear. But Maya had heard many things in her 32 years. And she had ignored the wrong cries before, ones she still dreamed about. So she stepped away from her cart and moved toward the grand staircase. "Miss Walker," the butler barked from across the hallway, his voice sharp with disapproval. "I'll be quick," Maya said, already halfway up. The steps were long and winding, the banisters gleaming with wax perfection. Paintings of stoic men in tailored suits and steel eyes lined the walls. But nothing was as haunting as the corridor at the top. Dim, dusty, dead silent, except for that soft thumping sound at the far end. She followed it to a heavy wooden door cracked just slightly open. Maya peeked inside. The room was large, filled with antique furniture and scattered toys. A boy, no older than 7, sat curled against a far wall, rocking back and forth. His forehead tapped rhythmically against a bookshelf, thump, thump, thump. His hands clenched and unclenched with each motion, his knuckles red from friction. Maya could see the imprints of tears on his cheeks. No one was with him. She stepped in quietly, crouching low. "Hey, sweetheart," she whispered. "I'm not going to touch you. Just sitting here." The boy didn't react, but the rocking slowed just slightly. She moved a little closer, still seated. Her instincts told her not to reach for him, not to say too much. She knew this posture. Her brother Marcus used to do the same when the world became too much. She raised a single hand and signed across her chest. Safe. A flicker. A pause. The boy blinked at her. His mouth moved, but no sound came. He tucked his knees tighter, but he wasn't rocking anymore. "Maya," came a thunderous voice from behind. She jumped and turned. Brandon Caldwell, CEO of C-Logic, stood in the doorway, suit jacket unbuttoned, eyes stormy. He looked at her like she was an intruder in his vault. "What the hell are you doing?" he growled. "I heard him crying," Maya said, standing slowly, palms open. "I thought something might be wrong." "And who gave you permission to enter this floor?" "No one," she admitted. "I just couldn't ignore it." Brandon swept past her and moved toward the boy. "Come on, Lucas." He reached down, trying to lift the child. The moment he touched him, the boy erupted into screams, violent, piercing, panicked. He thrashed, kicked, and clawed at his father's arms, his voice a raw, wordless shriek. "What's wrong with him?" Brandon muttered, trying to hold him. "May I?" Maya asked, stepping closer. Brandon didn't reply, but he stopped resisting. Maya knelt down again. "Hi, Lucas," she whispered. "It's okay. I'm right here." She didn't touch him. She didn't speak again. She just sat still and calm. After a moment, the boy turned, crawled forward, and gently rested his head on her lap. Silent. Trusting. Brandon stood frozen, his mouth slightly open. He had just watched his own son surrender to a stranger's kindness. Maya looked up at him, her voice quiet but firm. "I think he just needs someone who speaks his language." That night, the entire mansion felt quieter, as if the walls themselves were stunned by what had happened. Maya couldn't sleep. She lay awake on the thin mattress in the staff quarters, staring up at the ceiling, heart still thudding from the moment Lucas had chosen her. A stranger. A janitor. Over his own father. The knock on her door came just after 11:30 p.m. She opened it slowly, expecting maybe the butler or worse, security. But there stood Brandon Caldwell, still in his white shirt sleeves, no tie, no jacket, just a man who suddenly looked a decade older than the portrait hanging in the main hall. "Can we talk?" he asked. She stepped aside. He didn't sit, just stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the garden below. My son has a condition, he began, his voice almost too quiet. Selective mutism. Autism spectrum disorder. PTSD. That's what the experts say, anyway. Maya nodded, saying nothing, letting him continue. I've hired therapists, behavioral specialists, play-based, exposure-based, occupational, speech. They all gave up after a month or two. He exhaled. Lucas doesn't let anyone in. Until today. She could still feel the weight of the boy's head on her lap. Brandon turned to face her. You're not a therapist?
No, sir.
Just a cleaner, Maya replied. But I've known kids like him. My little brother Marcus was nonverbal until he was 11. He nodded slowly, as if beginning to see her in an entirely new light. Whatever you did today, it worked. For the first time in 2 years, Lucas let someone touch him, sit near him. I didn't do anything magical. I just listened and signed. Brandon looked down, rubbing the back of his neck. I want to make you an offer. A new position. Maya blinked. A new position? You'd no longer be part of the cleaning staff. Your only responsibility would be Lucas. Help him. Be near him. Teach him whatever it is you know. He paused, studying her face. I'll double your pay. You'll move into one of the guest rooms, private bathroom, garden access. Full benefits. Paid vacation. If you want, I'll even cover continued education in child development. Maya's breath caught. She hadn't expected this, but something in her hesitated. Mr. Caldwell, I'm not a teacher or a specialist. I don't want to give you false hope. And Lucas doesn't need a babysitter. Brandon didn't flinch. He needs someone who understands him, even if it's not through a degree. She looked at him for a long moment. If I do this, I need to be more than just a body in the room. I want to advocate for him. That means suggesting changes in the house, his schedule, maybe even with you. His brows rose. With me? You run a tech empire, but your son is scared of his own home. That has to change. There was a pause, and then a faint, almost reluctant smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. You're not afraid of me, are you? No, Maya said simply. Should I be? For a split second, Brandon looked like he might laugh. But instead, he offered his hand.
Deal.
She shook it.
Deal.
Neither of them knew it then, but this moment would mark the start of not just Lucas's healing, but theirs as well. The next morning, Maya awoke before the sun. The room Brandon had given her was modest but warm, a soft bed, a wooden desk, and an old quilt folded at the foot that smelled faintly of lavender. She unpacked her belongings slowly, reverently. A photo of her grandmother, another of Marcus as a child holding a toy dinosaur, and a faded letter he had once typed for her in all caps. Thank you for never giving up on me. She placed them on the nightstand like anchors. When she stepped into Lucas's wing of the house, the air felt heavy with caution. She knew better than to come in like a rescuer. She had learned from Marcus that children like him didn't need rescuing, they needed recognition. She sat down several feet away from Lucas, who was crouched by the window, his gaze fixed on something far in the garden. No greetings. No questions. Just presence. From her tote, she pulled out a small container of colorful pipe cleaners and began shaping them into animals. Quietly, calmly. After a few minutes, Lucas glanced her way. She bent one into the shape of a butterfly and held it up, making it flutter gently in the air. Lucas didn't smile, but he shifted. And then slowly, ever so cautiously, he moved closer. That was their first bridge. Over the next few days, bridges began to form between moments of silence. Maya didn't rush them. She let Lucas lead. One afternoon, she brought a small chalkboard and wrote down a single word, tree. Then she drew one beside it and signed the word as she tapped the board. Lucas watched, then picked up the chalk and drew a sun. On day 6, she found him waiting by the window, holding the red block she had handed him before. He didn't hand it over, he offered it. In his way, he was inviting her back. Brandon watched this change unfold from the shadows of doorways. At first he was skeptical, hovering silently during their sessions. He'd cross his arms, lean against the wall, say nothing. But soon, his silence wasn't from doubt, it was from awe. He hadn't seen his son so still, so open, since Melissa's passing. I used to read to him every night, Brandon said one day, his voice barely above a whisper as Maya and Lucas painted in the garden. The Polar Express. Over and over. He loved the train whistle. Maya nodded but said nothing.
She didn't pry.
She just let the memory breathe. One morning, Maya invited Lucas outside with a soft wave. He followed. Not immediately, but he followed. They walked through the side gardens where butterflies rested on lavender sprigs. Maya signed butterfly and slowly moved her hands, as if in flight. Lucas mimicked her clumsily at first, then again with more precision. Each day became a new ritual. Lucas would reach for her hand, not to hold it, but to copy the shapes she made with her fingers. Through his fingertips, he was learning to speak. Music came next. Maya placed a small Bluetooth speaker on a wooden bench in the courtyard and let it play soft piano melodies. She gently guided Lucas's hands to feel the wood vibrate beneath him. His eyes widened. He lay flat on the bench, cheek pressed to the surface, letting the rhythm travel into his skin. And then he hummed. Not a full song, just a single note, vibrating back. One afternoon, Maya brought watercolors and paper. She didn't ask him to join. She simply painted. Trees, skies, bridges. Lucas watched for days before finally dipping a brush into yellow and painting a half-circle sun in the corner. The next day, he painted a stick figure holding hands with two others under a crooked tree. When Brandon saw it, he stood motionless for nearly a full minute. "That's thus," he said at last. Maya nodded. It's his way of speaking. Lucas's room slowly transformed. Maya created a wall of progress, pinning every drawing, every new sign, every smile caught on camera. It wasn't just about healing, it was about growth. About claiming joy inch by inch. At night, she would read aloud, not expecting Lucas to listen. But he always did. Sometimes from under the bed, sometimes curled in the corner. Once, she caught Brandon sitting just outside the door, eyes closed, listening to the lullaby Maya sang in soft southern tones. Lucas began initiating small rituals. He'd line up his colored blocks on the rug, point to one, and wait for her to name it in sign language. He'd bring a sock or a spoon to her and wait until she signed its name. And always, he'd mimic her. Eager to connect, hungry to belong. They weren't just building a bridge now. They were building a language. A family. Weeks turned into months. Lucas no longer flinched at every footstep or slammed door. The boy who once hid in shadows now peeked around corners, sometimes even waiting by the door before Maya arrived. His walls weren't gone, but they were thinner now, like fog lifting slowly in the sun. Each morning began with their ritual, a stretch of quiet time where Maya sat near him on the rug, hands open, smile soft, offering the kind of peace that doesn't ask anything in return. They'd go through picture cards together, objects, feelings, colors. Some days he'd only glance at them. Other days, he'd trace them with his fingers. Each one felt like a small victory.
I